brings us to why we're here today. This is, again, our open house. We usually have a couple before we present the training, which is the Underground Railroad Odyssey training Odyssey have, as you choose to put it. And we do this to expose people who may be interested or people just want to know a little bit about us, to some of the ways that we've come to view things and how we tend to present issues that may or may not affect the common community or what used to be. And I say that because I remember several years ago, I was across the street up at Java Juice and Jazz with a close friend of mine, Dr. Black. And we were talking about the black community. And so we walked outside of Java, and he told me, he says, what did you just say? I said, the black community. He says, okay, where is it? I said, it's here. He said, oh, it is. I said, yeah, he said, you sure this is the black community? I said, well, he said, so look at it. Is it in decay? Yeah. You feel comfortable walking down the street? Not particularly. You know what community means? I thought I did, but I never really researched the etymology of it. When I did, I found out that I didn't. You get to the core of it, you're going to get to a place of caring and sharing. And as I looked at this once vibrant community, where people were proud to live, Hamilton High School was right there. The old original Hamilton High School, I'm looking at it right now, was one of the bedrock high schools and one of the, what they call almost elite high school, public high school in the city. It's down here now, and so many things have happened down there. It's incredible how it's degenerated, how this community is degenerated. One of the first, or one of the few black millionaires lived right around the corner. A. Maceo Walker, Antonio Maceo Walker, lived right around the corner from here. So I had to concede that this was not a community any longer. It had been torn asunder. And as I thought about all the neighborhoods and communities that I had been a part of or knew about in this city, I could not put my finger on one that was still vibrant, not one. And now as I drive through the inner city of Memphis, it literally brings me to tears. I grew up in this area, this general area, grew up down Lauderdale Sub. And drive by Rita Franklin's place of birth and look at it. You tell me Lucy Street, which I really grew up over there, you tell me that's a community. Or in North Memphis, where I was born, drive in some of those areas and tell me that that's a community. You see, what he explained or what he tried to get me to see, brother, was the language that I was using was imprinting an old picture in my head that I was still trying to bring forward in the present. So I was trying to make what once was applicable in the right now. And that creates some friction inside because it is not the right now. And I'm not suggesting that there ever was a perfect community. I'm not suggesting that at all. And there's always been some issues, but certainly I do remember a time when I felt safe walking up and down the street. I remember that for a great part of my life, I never heard a pistol shot unless it was New Year's Eve. And I lived in Lauderdale City for a great deal of my life. I never heard a gunshot. I don't think I could say that today. So, some of us talked about unity. Let me ask you a question. What does the word algebra mean? You ever taken it? Did you take it in school? Algebra. Algebra. Yes. Yeah. You know what it means?
Like mathematics, I don't know.
It is a type of mathematics. Yeah. That is a fact. But I think what I heard you talking about was algebra. What both of you said about unity. Master Aaron Lewis,
Yeah.
what does algebra mean?
Algebra is the Arabic word, etymologically traced, it means the reunification of the missing parts.
That's what the word literally means, reunification of the parts. And so what we've experienced is a mathematical equation of disunification of the parts. And what we're talking about is how to reunify the parts. But as in any mathematical equation, if you have an incorrect formula, you'll always get an incorrect answer. And what I've been seeing over my last 60, well, I became a little size at about 14. What I've been seeing since I was 14 years old is a bad formula. And what I've been seeing with that bad formula is keep doing it over and over again. That's what I've been seeing. That's what I've been witnessing. If it doesn't work, let's keep doing the same thing. It's going to work eventually. And it ain't worked yet, folks. It ain't worked yet. Go ahead, E. What you say?
Does the bad formula get promoted? Is it promoted?
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes for different reasons. I'm not suggesting that there's just one reason the bad formula is being promoted. I think there's a default of people not understanding that there are other options. But I think what may have happened is it was never diagnosed properly in the first place. The issue, the dis-ease. I think perhaps it was never accurately diagnosed. And if you don't diagnose a dis-ease and you prescribe a formula for it, you will not cure the disease. So you'll be given penicillin for the flu over and over, and now the body builds up a resistance to other bacteria. Is that correct? Is that what happens? And so now when you get sick somewhere else, you don't have an antibody or the correct antibodies to fight that off. I'm suggesting that may be a metaphor for what we've witnessed today. So what I would like and what we have like is perhaps let's see if we can dismember this thing in a brief way and see if we can find some of the core that's infecting us. And so, just to set this up, we live in what may be perhaps called, and there are different words for it, culture, mother culture. You know what culture, the word culture means? Anybody know what the word culture means? Somebody got to know what it was.
System of beliefs.
Kinda.
Traditions.
What?
System of beliefs and traditions.
And traditions. Kinda. But yes and no. Here's why. I think that's what we've been led to believe about the word culture. And what we've really assigned to culture are traditions, beliefs, morals, style, and we've made that to be a culture. But that's not what culture really means. If you trace the word
Cultivate.
go to cultivate, you go to cult, you go to colony, you go to seed, because the word culture is actually how you get and eat your food. That's where you're going to get, if you go to culture, you're going to get to agriculture. That's where you're going to get back to. And the culture is how a group of people get their food. The rest is style, tradition, morals, mores. You know what I'm saying? That's the rest. But that's what a culture is. There are very few cultures on the planet. There are very few. But once you begin to believe something and you concretize it, it becomes a reality for you. If you don't break it down to see what it is and then reunite it as what it is, you'll see pink elephants playing baseball. because that's how the brain works. So let's say we live in a culture, a construct, a matrix. The word matrix means womb, mother, ma. You see ma, matter, matter,
Mary, Marie.
Mary, marine. Y'all, you're talking about the same thing. We live in a matrix, a system. Some people even called it the man when I was a young man. They called it the man. And it's this invisible force. It's like this invisible force behind it that's controlling and pulling levers and saying things that has us marching to his beat. I read that on Facebook a lot. How we're being controlled. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. But let's, for our purposes, for the visual purpose, let's call this a construct. And a construct, the word means to pile together with structure, but the word literally means to pile together. But they piled this together based on this. Because anytime you find civilization, and almost all of the entities within civilization, you're going to find it structured like this. With the many serving the few.
Point it this way, huh?
The many serve the few. Now, I need Harold, would you come stand behind me and hold us?
I will.
Or just stand right there. Yeah, no, just stand right there, right here, all the way back. All right. And this is our construct. And all over the planet, wherever there are civilized people, this is how you'll find it's structured. I don't care if it's communism, capitalism, democracy, republics, oligarchies, you name them. Church, school, prison, you name it. Almost every organization, everything we are a part of is based like that. It has a head, and everybody else serves it. And most of us don't even know how it got this way. We are clueless. Because we were told, what? What's those magic words? How to get this way, Joanne?
Just what it is.
Just what it is. Just
What it is.
is it? Has it always been this way?
I don't think it's always been it, but from what we know, yeah.
Yeah, and it hasn't. But that's called the great forgetting. We ain't there yet. And because me, I'm a part of this construct, unless you live deep in the woods somewhere by yourself, you are part of this construct. And Joanne, can you come up? Yeah. I want you to stand just right here for now. Now.
You serve me. You serve me.
Me. Me.
You serve me.
Me.
Now hold it right. Well, see, the way we come into this, like a young, beautiful young girl, she ain't been on the, as a complete entity. She ain't been on the planet long, or in the planet long. She just came, we talked about this this morning. She just separated from the matrix into another matrix. And now she has some important decisions to make. How she's going to ensure that she's inculcated into the matrix. How she's going to train her. How she's going to educate her. How she's going to teach her the difference between knowing and believing. There's a difference. It's a massive task. Particularly when you serve me.
Me.
particularly when you got
You serve me.
sending forth with every signal it can find images to her brain to make sure, to ensure that
You serve me.
and it is going to do that with television, radio, film, books, everything within it. It is going to ensure that
You serve me.
trust me on this one, folks. But to support that, it has to have massive help, because without that help, you would have something called anarchy. Now, I'm not against anarchy. My only problem with anarchy is they may not have what I'm feeling right now, air conditioning. I'm addicted to air conditioning because I live in the South. No, I am. I don't want to see anarchy. Nor do I want to see anomie, and it's lawlessness. But that's really what I'm beginning to see now. There are some real reasons, but let's get back to this. In order to support this, it orders up something. Institutions. And I'm not saying anything bad or good. I'm just saying institutions are. You have to have institutions in a society of millions or hundreds of thousands of people. You have to have institutions in order to keep law in place. And then, you see, a rule is a law, a bylaw. It doesn't just have to be a criminal statute. And let me tell you, folks, in another life, I was an advocate for a huge governmental agency. And I was the guy that argued for that governmental agency in EEOC, Americans Protection Board and Arbitration. And in my office, I had this whole row of U.S. codes, whole wall. There are literally thousands and thousands of just U.S. codes. We ain't got the state codes, a municipal code, a county code, or the rules of school or work or your organization, your bylaws, nursing rules and regulations. You get what I'm saying? There's so many rules and regulations, you don't know sometimes if you're breaking one or not. That's called prescribed law. In other words, it's set up for you, right? And so you come into this thing depending on these institutions because I think they were designed allegedly to support you. But let's see if they really are. So I need a volunteer. Simone.
Yes.
Can you come and stand next to Harold? And you just familiar with your life.
Come to me.
Hold it up so they can see. Got your left side line.
Come to me.
Because that's exactly where you're going. But before you get there, well, you're already there. I think you have born into it. First institution that we come into is this one. Family. That is which is familiar. That's what family means. Familiar. And depending on who or what that family is and its level of function and dysfunction, it kind of prepares you for your course to navigate through what you're going to see these institutions are. Now, if you happen to come from a family like mine, you might be ill prepared. I came from a family where my father's people were heroin addicts and gangsters and killers. Some of them had jobs. And my mother's people were, some were domestics. One was particularly wealthy. But there was a lot of dysfunction. My father began to drink early. He decided that he wanted to punish me. He punished me by stripping me naked and beating me till I bled. Often, whipping is good for you, they say. I've never found them particularly interesting. And I want to say, just for me, it has never abated any activity that I was doing. Not one time did a whipping ever stop me from doing anything I wanted to do. That's just me. I'm stubborn. But anyway, I come from what you would call a dysfunctional family. It functioned, but it also had its own dysfunction. And probably every family has some form of dysfunction, and perhaps you'll see why. And ours. So I'm going to need all the help of you IJ folks, because I want our visitors to see this graphic.
You can sit back there for a moment. Yeah. Oh, I just took the break. I love. Come to me.
You served me.
Me.
So we start with your end this time.
Me. I love.
You served me.
Come to me.
Is it making sense? Is it set this simple? But it don't make no sense. Right? So now, like, for some of you, maybe before you even became aware of it, you went to an institution. And it certainly prepares you to face life and life's challenges. And you went there, and if you're like me, you didn't know what they was talking about. Like me now, I'm not saying you are, but I went to church. And I was a young person, I was a little boy. And when I went to church back in the 50s and the 60s, they had this guy with this big black suit on with some big jelly pants, and they wasn't dressing like they dress today when I started going to church. And he shouted, and everybody said, amen. And I never knew what he was saying. So I just thought maybe I wasn't getting the message. Personally, I was like, man, everybody understands what he's saying but me. Because he'd go, and he'd go, amen. And I go, and then that music would come on and it scared me to death. And they'd get up and they'd dance, and they'd be dancing, and I'd ask my great grandmama, what are they doing? And she says, listen to this. The eyes were rolling back in their head, they were doing like this. She says, they're getting happy.
Holy Ghost.
I thought that was happy. I didn't know you act like that when you got happy. And quite frankly, I did not want to get happy. I was scared of getting happy like that. So that creates something inside. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I need somebody, Aaron, would you come up here?
I'm going to join the presentation.
Get closer. Hold it up, say it like.
I heal you.
Now, let me explain what I'm saying about that. Your first doctors, your first psychologists, your first alchemists, chemists, chemists come from the word alchemy. Your first, all of those come from this institution. Your priest was your psychologist. Your priest, your holy men, which holy means healthy. Your healthy men are the ones that practice helping you to heal. This is where this comes from. That's why it says, I heal you. Because that's what this institution supported. As you remember, right now in Memphis, Tennessee, there are what? 3 major hospitals. What are they? Baptist, Methodist, and what? And that's a Catholic hospital. That is not by accident. And St. Jude, which, by the way, comes from a guy by the name of Daddy Thomas, who was Lebanese. That's odd. But it's St. Jude. So you see what I'm saying? How they had all kind of traces back. You may be getting some idea of some interconnectedness here. What? So let's start with Joanne.
Me.
You served me.
Come to me. I love.
I heal you.
Some of you can really relate to this. About 5 years old, they told me, you're about to go to nursery school. And I said, I am. And they said, I didn't go to kindergarten. They said, we're nursery school. I stayed in there all of 1 week. After 1 week, they didn't want me there no more. And I didn't want to go. So the next year, they sent me to public school. And boy, when I got there, I was totally confused. But they said it was good for me. I was going to learn. I had to learn what? Well, learn how to read. Well, I already know how to read. Because y'all taught me. Well, learn how to write. Well, I already know how to write. Because y'all taught me. Well, you got to go. Now, a child is concrete literal. You cannot explain abstracts to a child. They don't get it. I wouldn't understand about the law said I had to go. You know, it is education is a part of the Constitution of the United States. Is that correct? It is. Are you sure about that?
I was.
Yeah. Where did it start? Where did the idea of public education start? Not education, but public education. Who started it? Where did they go to learn about it? What information did they bring back? More importantly, who sent them to learn about it? And why? That's some questions we probably need to ponder real deep. It is not a pretty answer. And I'm not making any of this up. And I suggest that you not only not believe me, because I might be lying. I suggest you check it for yourself 2 or 3 times from 2 or 3 sources. But what I do know, I don't believe this, I bet you'll find out that not that I'm correct, because I'm not, it doesn't matter if I'm correct or not. I bet you'll find out what I found out. I bet you that. But this is where we're going. Education. Pardon me, folks, that's my grandbaby, my great-grandson, my great-grandson-in-law, and my other great-grandbaby. Come on in, sister. You with them?
No, I'm just thinking somebody.
Who you picking up? Jesse? Probably barbershop. You want a barbershop in the front?
No, they're not here.
Thank you.
By the way, if you all been looking at these things on the wall, this is not what this is. Even though some of us may be affiliated with it, that is not what Inward Journey is. We happen to rent this space from a brother that has this space, and I remember one of the members of Inward Journey owns the whole complex here. So I just want to make that clear in case you're thinking we're trying to recruit you into something you don't have a problem with. So,
School teacher.
yeah. Perfect. We school you. And I mean, hey, dude. Yeah. So let's run through let's do this, Joanne.
Me.
You served me.
Iris.
I love. Come to me.
I heal you. We school you. Now, behind all of this is something with a lot of power. A lot of power is invested in it. And it really controls or has control over basically all these functions but one of them they're in, let's say, general agreement with. And that is the state. Now the state is wide and varied, and I don't mean the state of Tennessee. The state is a system of institutions that encompasses a whole lot. It would be your political offices, all the way down from your mayor, your city council, to your county commission, to your state offices, the governors, the state assembly, then your congressmen, your senators, the president, and then those things that's under it, like the internal revenue, like the United States Marines, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and Air Force, the National Guard, the Reserves, police departments, the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, NSA, CIA, TSA, AAA, FAA, the state, the almighty state. And you are going to render to the state. Trust me, you are. Or your options are the penitentiary or death. Here's why. Sammy, would you come up? Right here. Because now we're going to just try to break these down a little bit. The almighty state, let me tell you what the state is assured of. The state knows that you're going to render yourself to it because it has the power of liberty. It can lock you up. It can make life miserable for you. If you don't pay child support, it takes your license. Y'all didn't know that. If you got a sizable refund coming, it takes your money. It has the virtual appearance of control over almost every facet of our lives. Because you have to pay some form of tax. I don't care what you call it. If you're paying dues, you're paying tax. Everybody kicks up to the state, but because they've always been a part of each other, except when they got here, and then they allegedly separated. Maybe, maybe not. Now, the reason I say that is, in the old world, this is the New World Order, by the way. They're not talking about something that's going to happen one day. They're talking about something that happened in what year? What year did this become a country? 17. Are you sure about that? Or you believe that? I don't think this became a country in 1776. What year did this become a country? Somebody, not somebody, what year did this become a country? What year did this become the United States of America? Somebody tell me.
1789.
1789. That was after the Articles of Confederation. The last was passed. They passed the United States Constitution. On the seal of the President of the United States, you'll see 1789. That's when it became the United States of America. 1776 was the end of the Revolutionary War. It's also when the Declaration of Independence was written and put out. But boy, this New World Order came in place of the Old World Order. And the Old World Order was about kings and empires and queens and
monarchy.
You get it? That's what the Old World Order was. And they said, we're going to form a new nation that was governed by and for the people. And it worked for a very few years. And then the Old World Order started getting its way in the New World Order via the monetary system. Don't take my word for it. Go check it out for yourself. And by the time Andrew Jackson became president, they got their tentacles back in. But one of the things they said was, we're going to separate these two institutions between the state and church. Anybody know why they did that? So the state wouldn't control the church, correct? I think it's the opposite way. The state didn't want to kick up to the church. See, before that, the state kicked up to the church. The church. When I'm saying the church, do you know what I'm talking about? The Holy Roman Catholic Empire. In all your churches, you see, if you're not a Catholic, you are a protester. You're an upset Catholic. That's a Protestant. And because a guy by the name of Martin Luther, not King, decided that he wanted to go against the Catholic Church, he he created what was called the Protestant Reformation movement. And that's where the rest of your denominations came from. But before then, it was the church. And everybody had to kick up to the church. And so when they formed this nation, now by that time the Anglican Church had come in because the king wanted to get a divorce over in England.
Right.
And the Catholic Church wouldn't allow that, that's correct? And so he just started him another version of the church. But the strange thing, you ever been in the Anglican Church, or what do they call it over here? It's not the Anglican. Episcopalian. You ever been in an Episcopalian church? It's the same as a Catholic church. They read from the same thing. And you know what? It ain't much difference in Baptists and Methodists and all the rest of them, because all of them are predicated on the Catholic Mass service. It just changed a little bit. I'm not being negative about these things. I'm just giving you some information. And so they took you to the church, and you sit there and you heard some things that perhaps you understood at 5 years old. If you're like me, you didn't. And the state now is running everything. Everything is regulated. Want to be a barber? You got to go to the state. Want to be a beautician? You got to go to the state. Want a contract on something? You got to go to the state. I don't know of anything. What'd you say? Undertaker. You got to go to the state. Because every time the state finds a new industry, what do? Right. They regulate it. Remember when daycares hit in mass in Memphis? Remember when they hit in mass back in the 90s? And the state decided to pay because I think they wanted to get people off welfare. And daycares just started popping up. And the industry, it grew so fast, they couldn't regulate it. Then nothing of them started smoking weed and leaving little babies out in the car and having wrecks and killing folks. And the state came in, and when y'all was making all that money, they stopped that. The state regulates everything except the underworld. But they regulate that too, because they're part of that too. It's hard to escape them. And here's how the state originally comes in. You live in an area that lives by consensus. Say you may be the Iroquois Indian, or the Twa, or the Khoi people in Africa. And you live by consensus. There's no leader, there's no pyramidal structure. The fancy word for it is egalitarianism. Everybody's equal. Women don't have a lower status than men. There's no chief. That's some later stuff that got introduced. Right? And the state sends its representatives in to your area. And they come in with guns that you've never heard before in life. You don't even have a conception of a weapon like that. And they come in with guns and under threat of being shot because you saw that soldier of yours, that hunter, get shot from a long distance and a big hole appears in his chest or his head. And they scare you to death. And they put you in the form of submitting to them. And you see, that's what the United States Marine Corps manual says. Its definition of war is one nation imposing its will upon another. And they do that through shock and awe. They literally put you in a state of being so afraid of what they have the technology to do that you are both shocked by and in awe of it. Can you imagine what the Japanese people who were some distance from Nagasaki and Hiroshima thought when they saw Trinity or the Fat Boy blow up? Can you imagine seeing an atomic device incinerating 300,000 people for the first time? You know nothing about that kind of power. Don't you think that's shock-inducing? Don't you think that's awe-inducing? So, Roy, can you? And I want you to say those words, shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
Joanne?
Me.
You serve me.
I love. Come to me.
I heal you.
You didn't give me
This state.
a state.
We school you.
All right. We're getting closer. And so now, let's talk about the shadow side of these institutions. As they have a function of teaching you your ABCs, education, or teaching you the love and peace of the prophets, or the anointed one, whatever you choose. Because I think that the man we know as Yeshua, or you call Jesus, I think he was a very smart and great person. I think he was a third or fourth dimensional thinker. That's going to be kind of hard for one-dimensional believers to understand what a fourth-dimensional thinker is talking about. But I think he was. I think his message was one just like what we're presenting here. You better watch this stuff. You better watch it. Isn't it strange that the very thing that he came to call out against, I think it was the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin, that he's about their structure and how they was getting money. Isn't it strange that it's replicated itself again? Something peculiar about that. But for some people it works, and it works well, and I'm good with that. And for some people it doesn't. For some people, when they went, say a woman has been raped or a child has been molested, she goes to the priest or the preacher, or the molester who goes to the preacher. These are facts. These are facts. I've researched them and said, you know, I have inclinations to want to have sex with children under 10 years old. What should I do? And he says, just pray. And he prays and he still molests his children. Those are facts. Those are documented facts. And that has happened repeatedly. Oh, I just looked at a program last night about the woman who had been raped, and she went to the preacher. And he says, let us pray. He didn't get any help. He didn't get any emotional or psychological help. Perhaps he doesn't know the dynamics of being molested and abused. Perhaps he doesn't understand. Perhaps he hadn't been trained in lay counseling to that degree. I don't know. What I do know is it has happened, and now the floodgates are opening up about the Catholic Church in particular, about how many young boys that they've raped, where in some states they have stopped the law. See, that was a, what's law when after something
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Massachusetts. If you molest a child in Massachusetts and the diocese moves you to another state, the law stops. So you can't beat the statute of limitations. This is how bad it had gotten in the Catholic Church. But it just doesn't happen in the Catholic Church. This happens all over the country. 1 out of 5 males, one out of 5 females, 1 out of 5 males are molested in this country before they turn 18 years old. The Center for Disease Control says that is epidemic. If it was a virus, they would put a quarantine around the city of Memphis. If it was a virus. Wouldn't you say that? If that was a virus that infected that many people, would they quarantine? And you barely hear anything mentioned about it. So some of us, this thing is beginning to fail now. It doesn't work for everybody the way it used to anymore. Let's talk briefly about this. Public education, the system that you gave away a few years ago to another portion of the state, the so-called white people. They took it from you. They allowed you to serve it up to them. They took it with always the promise that things are going to get better. and it's still one of the worst educational systems in the state. It still is. Now they have a goal of educating, they say, educate every child by 2025 or something like that to get a college degree. I have a question for you. Please help me with this one. You are aware of the economic situation in Memphis, Tennessee. It's the poorest metropolitan area in the country. On some standards, it's number 4. Most standards is between 1 and 4. The last one I read was the poorest metropolitan area. In 1968, it was the 2nd poorest city in the country. In 1968. Boy, things certainly have progressed, haven't they? Yes, you can find the research on it. So, the job situation just ain't that good here. It just hasn't been. Of course, you can always get a job at Federal Express. So here's my question to some of you that may understand this better than me. If you educated every child to his or her potential, to their potential, sufficient enough to go to college and graduate, let's say if that was possible. It is not, but let's say this is fair game. And they came back to Memphis, Tennessee, where they gonna work?
Amen.
Somebody tell me, where are they going to work? That's what my son has to go to work. That young man right there, he's going to North Dakota next week. So something's wrong. Wouldn't you say something's wrong? That is perhaps unrealistic. To think, if you think about this, the opportunity is there, but there's a danger inherent in if you do that too. And trust me, the state knows this. If you educate every child to their potential, what's the danger?
Might overthrow.
Listen to this. What is it?
Too many people can think.
And when you get too many people that can think,
You can't oppress them like you want to.
that's right. That's what happened in Egypt a 3 years ago. He had all those college graduates with no jobs. And they could think.
With a lot of free time.
With a lot of free time. They could think. And they overthrew the state they believed. That's the problem with the state. It's like fly picking. You can't shake it off. And so what happens is these institutions begin to fail you. They produce shock and awe. Shock and awe. That is dissonance. You're shocked by something and awed of it at the same time. There was a state called cognitive dissonance. That's holding two opposing thoughts. And it creates something inside that I call emotional dissonance. Two emotions that go along with the two thoughts. And partner, you got trouble because you know what happens? Darren, can you come up with me and hold this? When you hold two opposing thoughts and two opposing feelings, you know what just happened to you folks? You just got induced into hypnosis. Because that is how a hypnotist induces you into hypnosis. It's not by relaxation, it's by getting you to hold two opposing thoughts. I took the courses to learn how to do it, and I was amazed that that's how they do it. And once you are in a point of hypnosis, you know what they offer then? Suggestion. Suggestion. But when they limit your options, because one of the things I know about shock is shock limits options. That's what people with post-traumatic stress disorder are suffering with. But I'm suggesting that you're not even suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm suggesting that we're suffering from continuous traumatic stress disorder brought on by vicarious and direct trauma. And if it ain't direct, you look at the news every day, and I've been looking at it every day, and the lead-in is always somebody gets shot, somebody gets stabbed, somebody gets raped, somebody gets robbed. Every day, 7 days a week. That's just the lead-in. We ain't even got to the national. And so here you have your institutions, and this is how they're firing off on you. Everybody give your life.
You serve me.
I hear you.
How well.
I school you.
You serve me. How well.
I'm a school you.
I'm a school.
The state.
I hear you.
I'm a
You
school.
serve
The
me.
state. I'm a school you. The state. I'm a school
You
you.
serve me. How well.
Go to school. I'm a school you.
How well.
I'm a school you. The state.
Serve me.
The state.
Sabbath free.
Me!
You see this? You see this?
Me!
The individual, I'm just lost. The individual is lost. The places that the individual is gone for support, they now have gotten betrayed. It's called institutional betrayal. Where do you go for support? Where does the caregivers go for support? Because I know if you're a caregiver in this city, and you're facing what I know that comes at you in this city, I know you need some support. You're overwhelmed with the issues because you're supposed to be overwhelmed with the issues. Because where is that pyramid?
You serve me.
Because that's how it's designed to be. You must serve the few. There are no options for you unless you know the algebraic formula. How do you reunify the whole? How's it done? See, it's easy to say we need to, no doubt. I'd like to see it happen for real. But now I'm going to introduce you to the real construct. Hold it up. This is the construct, folks. You see it? See it?
Me!
I, you. That's what the construct is. This is it. It's been there all the time. It's not the pyramid. The pyramid doesn't exist. Everything exists because you hold it to be evident in your head. You co-created the construct because you were never taught how not to. Me too. I came in this thing innocent, blind, not knowing. And some people who didn't know did their best to navigate me through it. Their best. But how can your best go up against something that's over 12,000 years old? We keep talking about 400 years old. Man, this thing is older than 400 years old. You're just talking about the subjugation of African people. This thing goes back to Mesopotamia 12,000 years ago. It's had a long time to construct itself, but the construction is a mental thought and attitude. And the thought affects the emotions, and the emotions affects the thought. And you have a paradox, a conundrum, an enigma, and you can't talk your way out of it. So what do? Same thing, over and over. And that is a description of what we call insanity. We were deliberately driven insane because I want somebody right now to tell me, how can you prove to me that this system, this construct we live in is sane? How? Tell me how can this many people in this city be below the poverty level with the crime rates and everything we suffer, and you tell me this is a sane system? How can we fail our children over and over again and convince me that that's sane? So we blame the parents, we blame the children. No. I have to give an accounting to myself. I have to be accountable to me. So If this is the construct, how do you deconstruct? Because the only way to tackle this thing, I love to unite with black people. I've been trying it 20 years. No, I've been trying it longer than that. Really, truly. I can't, some of my stories are illegal. I can't even tell you. Statute of limitations ain't off yet. About me trying to help so-called black people, statute of limitations ain't off for some things I've done. But just like if you understand what happened to the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army and all those people, when you find out, when you bring people together, they bring this with them. That mental attitude, they bring it with them. And if you don't know how to help them deconstruct that, you get infected. If any of y'all ever saw the movie The Matrix, Agent Smith comes right in your midst. And the killing part about it, they don't know it. Because all of us have a faction of Agent Smith already in us. And the only thing I've seen that was effective is this. Intervention via initiation. Now, I ain't talking about no initiation when you go into a fraternity or sorority. And I've been a member of quite a few fraternities, not on the college level, but Masonic order. I've done most of them, including the Shriners. That's not what I'm talking about. You see, the word initiation comes from the word ignition, which comes from the word ignite. That means to start something. You got to have some people that have already started it to see what works and what doesn't, to have went down a trail or pathway inside to see what dangers come up. Where Agent Smith comes in, what are the antidotes to Agent Smith? And to do that in a safe, respectful way. That has to be done, and that takes practice, it takes learning, it takes a lot of money. And that's what the Underground Railroad Odyssey is about. And I'm not trying to sell you anything. It is about helping you. That's all the teacher does is point out. You got some educators in here. Educators, and then all you do is point out.
That's all you can do.
That's all you can do. That's the best you can do. That's what the word teach means, to point. It's up to the student, the pupil, to take in the information and what they do with it. And so what we do is we point out, and we don't tell you anything. We ask you. You know what? You already know. You knew when you hit the planet. It was encoded in your system. It was encoded, and it had to be taught out of you. You had to be taught how not to see, how not to care, how not to hear. When you walk in and you know something's wrong with this. When I walked in the first grade and said, Miss Howard, I need to use I said, no, I got up to go use the restroom. She said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the bathroom. She said, sit down. And I went, sit down? She said, sit down. You didn't ask. Come on now, let's get real. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, I know you're going to tell me, well, you know, in order to keep control and order, you have to have it. I said, that doesn't make any sense. That's a bodily function. It must happen because I am going to eliminate. I have to ask your permission, and she told me no. She made me wait until she was ready for me to go. Some of you have seen it. Come on now, get real. This lady's a school teacher. She doesn't do that, thank God. Come on, Simone. See that? She's a master educator. So right away, when we get there, they start chipping away at our souls. We need soul healing, folks. We need to reunite the soul, at least I think, to reunite it, to put it back in its rightful order. And that is to question everything that's happened to me. To shine the light of understanding on it. To make sure my emotions are, they are congruent with what the reality is. So now I want to open up the room for questions, comments, no debate. Ain't nothing for me to debate. I'm not suggesting I'm right about everything. It's just there's another way of doing it instead of I don't have to learn through argument anymore. I thought that was the way to learn, but I learned that's a crazy way for me to learn. And I don't have to answer any of your questions. It can be to anybody within the members of Inward Journey. Would you hold your hand up so they can see? Anybody in here. Let me say this first and foremost. I am a member in good standing of Inward Journey. That's it. There is no leader here. We don't have a president, a chairman, what do you call it? A guru, a sergeant at arms. We got 3 rules. That's it. Those are our bylaws, our rules, is everything. 3. That's it. So I ain't hearing that you got to have that pyramidal structure
To get things done.
to get things done. Because I've seen this group get things done so fast it makes your head swim. Because they don't have a pyramidal structure. They don't have the big boss at the top. We have a tribal council. There's no chairman. There's equal amount of females and males. Notice I didn't say men and women. I said females and males. We've been together 20-some years now. Out of those 20-some years, there's never been one vote that failed male against female. Not one time. So I can't buy that it can't be done. I know better. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I'm not suggesting that that's the way for everybody. Anytime anybody says this is the way and the only way, you just met a dictator. You better run. I'm suggesting we have a way, a solution. I'm suggesting you got many more. So, any questions, comments, statements, declarations? What are those things that Lincoln passed? Proclamation?